Hello everyone and welcome to Akron Buzz. Our next guest here in the studio, I'm very excited, Sandra Miller from 97.5 WONE.
Good morning.
Welcome to the Akron Buzz set.
Well, this is pretty exciting, I
Isn't
have
this
to
great?
say.
This is a nice setup.
It
huh?
is, it
Here
is
we are.
nice.
We're trying to do local television here in Akron.
There's something to be said about local.
Yes.
I absolutely love it. I love that you're doing local television, local radio, I love local.
I do too.
Let's keep it local, guys.
Yeah. So, we have 5 broadcast majors in the room.
Yes.
So tell us about how you got into broadcasting and why you wanted to be in this field. And how many years have you been doing this now?
I've been doing this for 28 years now.
Oh my gosh.
I've been at ONE for almost 22, so it's been a very long time. But this is something that I always wanted to do. My dad and I, very passionate about music. There was always music going on in our house. I'm the youngest of 4, so I would ransack, everybody's, my sister had Michael Stanley and Billy Joel, and then my brother had all the Metallica and the AC/DC albums, and then the next one was all the Huey Lewis and the News and the Whitney Houston, and then, so I kind of had to cherry pick, and then my parents' records, I still have all of their Ike and Tina and Rolling Stones records on my shelf. So music was always a big part of my life, and growing up, my dad and I would drive around all day long, and we would listen to WMJI. Ravenna Maselli, for a hot minute, did middays on WMJI. And I used to love just listening and they would, just that old school, radio. And I'm like, that is so cool. I want to do that. Dad, I want to be on the radio like Ravenna Maselli, because there weren't that many primetime females at the time. So I wanted to do that. And when I was 14, I actually started working at WAPS.
Of course.
At the time, it was not the cool 91.3 The Summit that it is now.
Was it at 89.1?
It was 89.1 WAPS. It was fully funded by the Akron Public Schools, and they had to, because the Akron Public Schools funded it, they had to employ so many student workers. So when I was 14, I got my first on-air shift there, and I stayed there for 7 years before coming to WONE, and I got to do a little bit of everything.
Just out of curiosity, of course I have a 14-year-old, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know about him. How did you get there?
My dad
would drive you to the WAPS.
My dad would pick me up after school. I'd get out of school a half an hour early, a couple days a week.
So on the radio and get out of school early.
I could get to my shift on time because it started at 4 o'clock. So he'd pick me up from Ellet High School. We'd go downtown. It was in the old op building there.
Yep.
And that's what I did, and I got the radio bug.
Did you know any of the bands that they were playing? If I remember, in that era, it was like modern rock and British rock, and
it was that AAA format. It was actually jazz from 8 a.m. to noon.
Yes.
Which I loved jazz, and any time that the Lindsay White would go on vacation, I got to fill in and do the jazz show.
Wow.
So I loved the jazz, and then from noon to 8 p.m. it was that AAA alternative. So it was a lot of the Bodines, Kirsty McCall, the Specials, all of these kind of,
Morrissey,
big country, Morrissey,
Depeche
all of
Mode
this,
and,
yes. So it really was cool. We used to do the color wheel back then. So all of the songs in the library, we could pick our own music. You just had to follow the color wheel, whether it was a yellow or yellow star, and then your currents were all played out for you. But it was really cool. It was a cool time to be in radio. We had the turntables. I produced the weekend shows with all the ethnic shows. So, the Italian hour would come in. Well, this was back in the 90s, 93, 94, and there was no Apple Music. There was no download it from Spotify or anything like that. So they would come in with these cassette tapes that people would record from the Italian radio stations in Italy.
Oh my God.
And I was like trying to queue up cassette tapes and it was very interesting, but it was a great time to be in radio and to be in that and the splicing the tape and bulking with the, and now everything is digital and it's so crazy.
Touch screens,
digital music,
automation,
everything.
And all of it.
It's changed so much and
but
it's so fascinating.
Live and local. And even in the era of automation and voice tracking, live and local. And what's it like you're up at 4 in the morning now, the little transition, and working with Jeff Kinsbach? You
know what? I'm still getting used to 4 in the morning. I'm not quite a morning person because I don't stop. I have 3 kids, so I don't ever get to nap during the day. But I was a little intimidated. I'm like, oh, I'm going to go work with Jeff Kinsbach, who really is
legendary
radio.
Absolutely.
And I have to say, he is the nicest person. He fully shares the experience. He lets other people shine. He steps back. He's not got this overinflated, I'm Jeff Kinsbach. He doesn't care that he's Jeff Kinsbach. Everybody else does. He's just a really down-to-earth guy, and his number one goal is creating the best show for our listeners. And it's wonderful to be a part of that, and he has fully embraced me, and I got the flash approval, so I'm good to go.
Do you like the remotes and being out in the community? And a little bit, people come up to you and say, hey, and have you been on for,
I've been there forever. Yeah, no, I absolutely love that part. I like, because when you're in a little room by yourselves and listeners call, it's one thing, but when you actually get out and people come up and they know you and you get to know these listeners over the years, it really is one of my favorite things, is actually getting out with the listeners and meeting them.
In the industry, the Rubber City Radio Group is this very unique because of live and local, and because you can meet the personalities, you can meet the talent, you can have this connection with the audience.
You can meet us out at our events. You can see me at a restaurant begging my children to act like they've got sense in their head, and please pretend like I've taught you manners. So at any given time, so that is something that is rare in radio anymore, because a lot of markets. They just, everything is recorded, and they'll have one person and they'll record like 6 or 7 markets at the same time. So the fact that we're all here, we're all local, we're all live, and you can bump into us at the grocery store, and we're out in the community, and we really do a lot as Rubber City Radio Group, raising money for community organizations and charities. It's something that's very important to us, is to be involved in the community, because we are locally owned radio. Tom Mandel, our owner, has an office on the first floor. He comes to work every day, sits in the boring meetings, makes his rounds. He knows every single buddy. He knows every single person that works in the building, and he knows about their family, and it's just a very rare thing this day and age in media to have that connection.
We have wonderful college students interested in broadcasting and video production that help us put this program together, all here working in the studio to make this all happen. If your kids wanted to go into media, television, radio, or maybe, what advice would you have for them or for students?
I tell you what, the way that media is now, computers. The computers, the technology, the social media, there's a lot of people. And I'll be honest, I'm kind of on the young end as far as my staff goes. And even I am kind of like, oh, social media. But that's the way it is. That's where you're not just on the radio anymore. It used to be theater of the mind. It's not so much theater of the mind as it is theater. You're on Instagram, you're on Snapchat, you're on Pinterest, you're on Twitter, you're everywhere. So as much as you can learn about how to market on social media, how to use those practices best, your editing tools, all of your computer skills. I mean, that's really where it's at, because while Rubber City Radio is a little bit different because we are so live and local, we still have a full team of social media and production. And when you get a job in radio, in a lot of larger markets especially, you're not just the afternoon person. You're also doing the production. You're producing, you're voicing, you're imaging. You are you're programming. You're doing a social media account. You're responsible for these things. You wear a lot of different hats, and everything is digital. It's all about what is digital and how many of these jobs can you perform, which makes you more marketable.
I cannot believe 28 years in radio.
I know, right? And I'm still 12 years old.
That joke works. You said, well, you started when you were 14, but in this case,
really did start when I was 14.
You love what you're doing.
Me.
You love your job. You love what you're doing.
I absolutely love it. Every single day, I'm thankful. Even on the days that I just don't want to get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning, by the time I walk into that building and I have a cup of coffee in my hand, I absolutely love it. I love being in the studio. I love doing what I'm doing, and I love getting out in the public and having somebody come up and say that I've made their day better. That's what does it for me.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come down and be
Tom.
on Akron Buzz. And Sandra Miller from 97.5 WONE has been our guest. And thanks for being here. And thank you for watching. We'll see you on the next one.